So what are the pluses and minuses of these trade negotiations between U.S. China announcements, U.S. UK announcements? What was affected? What did we see? Where did we see the effects? Well, they had a lot of effects actually, and we'll go through them pretty quick. First effect was on oil. I brought it up a little earlier. WTI, our first chart here shows, we can pull it up, there it is. We can see that oil was falling, right? President Trump has talked about bringing oil perhaps down to $50 a barrel. WTI crude, Brent crude, which is the crude that is in Europe, that would follow. But the overall idea was to bring down the price of oil. My opinion, I believe the United States, with their close ties to Saudi Arabia, which we just saw and was on display just yesterday, I believe the United States has asked the Saudis to increase production, to ask OPEC to increase production so that they can bring down the price of oil. I know there was some talk about cheaters in oil production. It was to go against some of the cheaters in OPEC and all that. That may be the case, but I think the overriding idea that I have was that the United States is behind bringing the price of oil down. The reason why we've seen the price of oil spike when the China-U.S. negotiations were announced and the tariffs were reduced was because now trade can begin again, can happen again. The global GDP numbers, if a trade deal can happen with China and the U.S., I think they will go higher. And as we know, GDP goes up. If growth goes up, more energy is needed, and the price of oil should go higher, at least initially. I still maintain that the United States is going to produce more oil. OPEC will produce more oil, and eventually the supply of oil will be larger than the demand, or at least match the demand, maybe slightly exceed, and we will see oil prices fall. The next, I guess, part of the markets that I've been hearing a lot about has been the idea of gold. Alan, should we buy gold? Well, gold has been a fantastic investment. You can see the huge run-up that we've had in gold, really since the start of the year. Unbelievable. It's probably the only thing that has gone up this much. Nothing really that I can think of. Maybe recently we've seen crypto Bitcoin move up quite a bit, but gold has had a great run-up. However, when you announce a trade deal between, or at least negotiations between China and the U.S., that is good. Good for America, good for the U.S., good for the U.S. dollar. U.S. dollar rises, which we'll see in a moment. And with that, price of gold comes down. There's not as much chaos in the world, not as much uncertainty in the world with a 90-day pause. Once again, price of gold falls. And before we came on the air, gold was down again today, about $60 an ounce. So we're really seeing the price of gold take it on the chin. I think it got as high as $3,500 an ounce, and now we're seeing it under $3,200. Our next chart, again, talks about the dollar and how the dollar has started to gain a little bit of strength. On the far right-hand side of this chart, it has gained strength versus the Canadian dollar and all the major currencies around the world. Canadian dollar now is back down to just over 71 cents. And you'll see it on our next chart here. We can show it. Canada-U.S. spot exchange. There you go, a year-to-date chart. You could see that for a while there, the Canadian dollar rose versus U.S., then dropped versus U.S., and now rising again based on the idea that the U.S. dollar again is doing well. You'll see right now, as I said, U.S. dollar doing well, Canadian dollar falling a little bit recently. Still not that unreasonable, still above 71 cents. But if a trade deal does happen, in my opinion, or if when multiple deals happen between the U.S. and other countries, I really believe that we could see the Canadian dollar or the U.S. dollar gain strength against all major currencies. And our Canadian dollar just may fall down below 70 cents again on this idea that our economy may not be doing as well and struggling a little more than the U.S. economy. So to me, keep in mind, what do trade deals mean? Not just good for GDP, seeing GDP growth. We're going to see global growth go higher, but it affects many different things. It'll affect interest rates. It'll affect what Fed says, and we'll talk about that momentarily, what the Fed can do. It'll affect gold prices, oil prices. It has a huge effect on many different areas of the markets, of the economy. And I think for all of us, we just got to keep everything in perspective. And what do trade deals mean? Well, it means that there are a lot of moving parts. So we'll see what happens over the coming days, because we know that 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs, I believe, ends at the beginning of June, beginning of July. So maybe we have just over a month left, and we're going to have to see a lot of trade deals happen in the next month. So keep an eye on these trade deals, and keep an eye on things such as gold and oil prices.